Hey everybody, welcome back to Gideon Stuff, and welcome to another knife review. Today we're taking a look at a very cool knife. This is the Camillus Classic. Now, before we get started on this review, this knife was given to me by Terry from Terry's Knives and Man Stuff. And before we get started, hats off to a legend and, respect to Terry. For those of you that don't know, he was another YouTuber, but he's recently stepped away from the platform. Super humble, awesome guy. Deserves a lot of respect. Okay, let's go ahead and get into this review. Starting us off, as always, with the blade length measurement. We are coming in here sharpened edge at basically 3 inches on the dot. If you measure all the way back to the bolsters, we're coming in just a hair over 3 1/16. So, not a huge knife. That extra 1/16 of an inch might make this not a legal-friendly knife for some people, which is a shame because it's got a lot of other legal-friendly features. But let's go ahead and get our size comparisons started. Let's bring out our Wrap 1, of course, and the R2-D2, obviously. Almost identical in size to the R2-D2. If you know the size of the Wrap 2, you know the size of this knife. Little bit fatter though. This guy does not skip very many meals. Let's bring out our USA made comparisons. Starting us off, of course, with the Spyderco PM2. Here's a Benchmade bug out. A little bit smaller than the bug out. Again though, a little bit chunkier. Let's bring out our Civivis. There's the Praxis, and there's the Elementum 2. Actually, a lot of similarities between these two knives. Way more than you might expect. Yeah, they've got kind of a similar profile, but the way they perform, the way they feel in hand is very, very similar. So, in some ways, this might be a more legal-friendly version of the Elementum if you need a knife that is two-hand opening. Okay, and to close off size comparisons, let's actually compare it against the Schrade Bruin. And just because I've got it out here on the table, here is the QSP Penguin. Not a huge knife. And we should probably compare it against a Camillus knife or two, no? I think so. Let's see, what Camillus knives I have close by. I've got these two. Okay. Here's the Camillus Rain, which is probably my favorite Camillus knife. Check out the full review of that. And here's the Camillus LK6. What is this one? I can't remember what this one's called, but there you go at any rate. Okay, I think that's more than enough. Size comparisons done. What are we looking at for our materials? Well, we have a drop point blade of 440 steel. I think this is 440B. I'll have to double check that, but 440 steel. Got steel bolsters. It's a steel backlock. We have micarta, scales, and a steel pocket clip. So let's go ahead and go see how it cuts. Hey guys, you ready to do some review cutting? I kind of am. So it's after work, which means it's in the evening, and I'm facing the west. And you can see the problem that we're having here, right? With the shadows, and also I'm just like staring directly into the sun. But it's been a while since I've come out here to do any review cutting, and it's pretty close, so I figured come out here and do some cutting with the organs in the background. They make for a pretty stunning backdrop, in my opinion. Anyways, what knife are we talking about today? I'm sorry about the shadows. I really don't like filming this time of day, but we gotta do what we gotta do. So, we are going to be doing some cutting with the Camillus Classic. Very, very cool knife, and I'm really excited to talk about this. Let's go ahead and start off with that action. This is a kind of different action. It's a two-hand open knife, but it's very smooth the whole way. This is not a knife that you can really... You can open it one-handed, but not very easily. And closing it one-handed, that was almost bad. would not recommend closing it one-handed either. Some people are not going to like that it's a two-handed knife, but I don't think that there's a huge problem with that. I kind of like the retro stylings of it, and some people live in areas where they can only carry a locking knife that is two-hand opening. I'm looking at you, Germany. But the action itself, for what this is solid. I've really got no complaints. It's not gritty, it's not like jerky or anything. It's good. Let's talk about the ergonomics. So as you can see here, the handle is swelled significantly in the palm area. This actually feels really good in the hand. That helps to hide the pocket clip. And I feel like, I really like how this area here slopes forward. I can get right behind that edge. Yeah, this feels good. That's a really, really solid grip. Again, nice and contoured, so it really fills out your hand and gives you a sense of security and solidity. So the ergos, I really got no complaints with. Let's talk about the carry. So the knife folds up into a pretty sleek little package. You are given a pocket clip, however, it is not reversible. That is kind of a miss, because otherwise this knife would be completely ambidextrous. And I'm getting a call. Gosh, I hate election season. Anyways, what were we talking about? The carry. So yeah, the clip itself works fine. We'll talk about that here in a little bit. The knife itself does have a little bit of weight. Again, I wish the clip was reversible. And it's a little bit bulky, even though it folds up into a relatively narrow package. It's kind of a narrow but fat package. Let's go ahead and see how this guy looks in the pocket. And again, these shadows might make this interesting. Oh no, I think you can see that good enough. So the pocket clip on these pants here, it works great. Now, I like to wear jeans when I do review cutting. That was weird. I like to wear jeans, but I wasn't wearing jeans today, so there are no jeans here. This clip works wonderfully in these pants. However, in jeans, it can be a little bit too grabby, so keep that in mind. I will say that right here. But other than that, the carry is, nothing horrendous or anything like that. Okay, let's go ahead and do some cutting. So we have a 440 blade here, drop point, hollow grind. Let's go ahead and grab us out some cardboard. The blade itself, I wouldn't say is anything too special, but those ergos really help this knife to cut like a champ, because you can get so close to that edge. You have so much power, so much control with these really, really excellent ergos that, yeah, it cuts really, really well. It's a very powerful cutter. I wouldn't say the blade is the sliciest thing. It's not bad. I mean, look at that. You can see here, that's ground better than a lot of knives, but the ergos are really what makes this a decent or a really solid cutter. As for utility cuts, this is a drop point, so you can get to that tip pretty easily. All right, let's grab our rope. Go ahead and do a pull. Okay, that felt decent. That is not suitable for a push cut. Do I have any rope in there that is? Nope. So let's go ahead and do another pull, I guess. There we go. Need to restock our rope here pretty soon. 1, 2, 3. Yeah, not bad. I mean, again, that's kind of just not minimal, but regular pressure that I apply to the blade when I do this cut test. And yeah, it crunched that rope pretty well. This knife is, working with a little bit of mass, so you can use that to your advantage. All right, pool noodle time. Let's see what we got here. 1, 2, 3. Oh, goodness. Wow. Okay, so there's our first cut. I went, kind of thick, nice and consistent the whole time. We didn't bind up or snag or anything. There's our subsequent cuts. This one really impressed me. Now, we did snag just a hair right there, as you can see. But honestly, that's a really darn good cut. The geometry on this knife is done really, really dang well. That is nothing to shake a stick at. So, I mean, the blade, I gave a lot of credit to the ergos earlier. The blade itself is pretty smashing good. Pretty smashing good. It's pretty smashing. That's a smashing blade on there right there, mate. I don't normally say stuff like, what am I? We're not cutting it out. There you go. There's a look at the knife. Let's get back to the table. Alrighty, guys, we are back. Let's talk about what I'm liking and not liking about this very interesting knife. First of all, I love the idea behind this knife. I love its styling. The Classic is a great name for this knife because it does blend a lot of classic knife design elements. Where the frick was I going with that sentence? This knife has a lot of classic knife design elements with some modern features. It looks very classic. Some of the classic design elements include the bolster and the butt cap. We've got the inlay. We do have pin construction, which I don't love, but it is very traditional. The back lock's very traditional, but we have a pocket clip, which is, you know, a more modern feature. The lanyard hole is a modern feature if you care about things like that. The micarta is kind of a modern material. And the build quality on this knife does feel a little more modern than, you know, something like that Bruin we pulled out earlier. This guy right here. I really like that. And this is a genre of knife that I'm a big fan of, kind of modern iterations of classic designs. This is kind of in the same vein as something like the Boker Bonfire, although this one goes a little, this is more of a modern knife with traditional stylings. This is kind of a traditional knife with some modern features, if that makes sense. But I like that. I think that's really, really cool. This is a knife that, you know, would be at home in your grandfather's pocket for sure. Speaking of some of those features, I do like that this knife has a pocket clip. I think that's a really, really good feature. The invention of the pocket clip kind of revolutionized the world of folding knives, in my opinion, so I like seeing it here. The knife itself looks great. I think that's kind of implied, but the knife itself does look fantastic. The next thing that I like about this knife, and probably the thing that I like the most, are the ergonomics. This knife is very, very comfortable. I don't feel that clip in my hand. At first I thought I would because it kind of, you know, sticks up a little bit like that. But for me personally, that just kind of disappears in a little crease in my hand and I don't feel it at all. Nice and thick. So this is definitely a hand filler. The micarta is nice and soft. The way this is shaped is really nice. You get kind of a pinch point up here with these fingers, and then these fingers wrap around and just lock the knife into your grip really, really nicely. But the best thing about these ergonomics, and the thing that I think is kind of the best feature of this knife, is this area right here. See how this kind of slopes forward? Well, that means that when you're holding this knife, it kind of puts your finger a little more towards the front of the handle than you might otherwise expect, and that puts you right behind the edge. This is excellent. I love this feature. This means you can get right up behind that edge for all your detail work without having to use a cumbersome and ugly finger choil. This is a very well thought out knife. I've been on an anti-choil kick for a while. I'm sure some of you know. And one of the things that frustrates me is it seems like a lot of companies or a lot of designers' answer to good ergos is throw a choil in the blade. I don't like that. Number one, it takes away edge length, but also the handle is where the ergos are supposed to be centered. Design your handle right, and you can do anything with it, you know? If you get your handle right, you don't have to worry about a choil, and this is a great example of that. You have a little bit of protection here to keep you from going up on the blade, but you're also right behind the edge. I think this is a very smart handle design, and I wish more companies would start designing their handles, putting a little more thought into their handles than just throwing a finger choil on the blade. I feel like that's kind of a lazy way out. And honestly, I don't think finger choils are as comfortable and ergonomic on folding knives as a lot of people think they are. So, rant over, just had to say that. Speaking of the blade, this is a good blade. The edge retention is not going to be incredible. You know, this is not a high-end steel, but I will say it hasn't been bad. Right now, it could probably use a little bit of a touch-up, but very easy steel to touch up. We have a hollow grind here. This knife does cut very nicely. You can see here we come down to a decently thin edge while still maintaining a somewhat thick blade stock. Very durable, very robust. I don't think you're going to snap your blade in half, but you do get a lot of sliciness. The blade shape itself is excellent for EDC. Very classic drop point. You can get to your utility cuts well. Got a little bit of belly for crunching down on, zip ties and such. Got a little bit of straight for your slicing needs. Yeah, just a really, really great blade shape, and it complements the handle very, very well. Next thing, the action on this knife is really good. This feels very smooth, very consistent all the way through. The lock engages really nicely. I mean, listen to this. That locks up solid. Like, that is a solid lockup. Feels really, really good. Yeah, the action on this knife is great. You can see here where the spine and the lock meet up. Looks really, really good to me. Honestly, let me show you this. So if I push back here, that blade just falls. It actually hit my hand. If you wanted to, you could put a quick stud on this, and I'm sure it would flick out. I'm sure it would flick out really, really nicely, which is something that I've considered doing. The nail nick, yeah, you can use it as a nail nick, but there's plenty of room here to just grab the blade and open it, which is awesome. This is a very legal-friendly knife. I know in some places, such as Germany, if your knife locks, it can't be one-hand opening. Well, here you go. This is not a one-hand opening knife, so you should be all right there. Okay, let's go ahead and go on to a few negatives. And the number one negative I have is that this clip is a little bit tight. It's not bad, but I think the clip could be a little bit better. But this is kind of a minor negative. A bigger negative is that the fit and finish on these micarta scales is not the greatest. You can see here we got some gapping on this side. You see we got machining lines on the bolster. We see just all this gapping. You can see that the shield is not put in there all that well. Just a little bit rough fit and finish on some of these pieces. Centering is fine. Lockup is fine, of course. Like the knife functionally is fine. But yeah, some of the fine little details are a little bit lacking, and it does show. It's noticeable. The other thing too is that pinned construction means this is not going to be a very easy knife to disassemble and maintain. That's a shame, but that's also a very traditional thing. So, like I kind of respect the feeling of it. It feels very traditional, but I do wish I could get in here without having to use all kinds of crazy tools. Next thing, plunge grind could be better. Actually, it's actually pretty good. We're not going to complain about it too much. It's all right. But I wish the clip was reversible. That's another big miss. They're leaving the lefties out, and this is otherwise a very lefty-friendly knife, but I'm leaving it out. Something else is this knife is a little bit heavy. If that's something you care about, this knife does have some weight for its size, but I don't really care too much about that. Let's go ahead and go on to my final conclusion. So this knife runs for about $30. Do I think it's worth that? Yeah, I do, actually. I really do. The fit and finish on the knife is a little bit disappointing, but the lockup is solid. The blade performance is right where it needs to be. The ergos are fantastic. I think I can recommend this knife pretty solidly. I would love to see the fit and finish improved in future iterations. Maybe this one's just a dud, but I think this is a really cool knife. I think it has a lot of potential. I really like the idea of putting a pocket clip on a very traditionally styled knife, bringing it a little bit more into the modern era. Again, this could be a very handy knife if you live in some legally sucky areas. But even for someone like me who doesn't live in an area that's too legally suckish, this is a cool knife, and I'm glad I have this in my collection. As you guys know, I'm a huge Camillus fan, and this was one that I always wanted. Now I've got in my collection, and this is actually probably one of my favorite Camillus knives in my collection. So, do I recommend it? Yes. Yes, I do. I think this is a great knife. If you're into this kind of thing, you'll definitely love this knife. If you're not into this kind of thing, maybe this would be a great knife to get your hands on to, maybe explore some new knife designs. It's not all that expensive. It's useful. If you want to carry more traditionally styled knives that maybe you really want to have a pocket clip, this could be the way to go. It's also make a great gift knife. It's a very simple, easy to use knife. Most people, even if they're not knife people, could figure out how to operate this thing. It's safe. You got that two-hand closing. So yeah, great gift for a non-knife person or a kid who's learning that knife skills. Yeah, I like this thing quite a bit. So that's where I'm going to leave you guys. Thank you so much for watching. Big shout out to my channel members right here at the Cowboy level. If you want to become a channel member and support the channel directly, there's a button down below. As for the rest of you weirdos, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed the video, leave a like, comment below, and subscribe, and share the video. I've been Gideon, and I'll see you in the next one. Adios.